Hello and welcome to A Daily Burn. I'm your host, Eric Miller. Today I'm joined by a really awesome progressive candidate running for Virginia's first district, which is Greater Richmond area. We'll talk about that. Mr. Salaam Bhatti. How you doing, Salaam?
Eric, I'm doing well. Please don't bring my father into this. You can just call me Salam.
Cool. Well, nice to meet you, sir. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking a step forward and running in this race. I do want to ask you a little bit about your background and obviously talk about the district and your platform, right? Um, and I want to hit on the dates. I'll hit on them a few times. The first date here is the primary, which is June 16th.
We don't know because
Okay.
we're going through redistricting in Virginia.
Okay. Tell me
So,
more.
yeah, so yes, June 16th is when it's scheduled if
Okay.
all things were the same. But because of Trump's gerrymandering wars, Virginia is fighting fire with fire. And the House just passed the redistricting proposal yesterday. It's over to the Senate now. I've been in call time all day, so I haven't seen what the Senate's done yet.
Uh-oh.
But the Senate should pass it, and then it goes to the people in April. Likely April 23rd is when the referendum happens.
Okay.
Should it pass, then the primary will likely get pushed to August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And right now, Virginia is 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and the push is to do 10-1. So 10 Democrats, 1 Republican.
Okay.
So it would be really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's an understatement of the year right there, right? So um in your race there, so this is an R+3 district as it stands, right? Is that
Well,
right?
it was, and
Okay.
then this previous November election, the district actually flipped D+2 during the statewide
Oh,
election. Yeah.
right on. Yeah, I was wondering about that because the Afton Bain race in Tennessee was huge, right?
Yeah.
And the she closed whatever it was, 12 points, right? So, in looking at progressives joining races now, anything less than R12 is in play
Yep.
theoretically, right?
Well, people are very upset throughout the district. I mean, the Rob Whitman who I'm running against is your typical, he gives himself a mild-mannered Clark Kent type appearance when really he's a Lex Luthor. He votes with Trump every single time. He protects pedophiles, even though his wife was a former teacher,
Mm.
which is very concerning. He profits from all the stock trading that he's allowed to do based on the insider information. He's a
Oh,
marine biologist and he's a multimillionaire. Those
okay.
two really shouldn't go together, especially when you're a public servant.
Yeah, I mean, we can dig into how terrible he is here too. Let me ask a little bit about your background first, right? So, Virginia Poverty Law Center, public interest attorney. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, your calling to public service, as it seems.
Yeah, I like to say I didn't become a lawyer to make dollars. I became a lawyer to make change. And
Awesome.
it really stems from my grandfather. He told us a story when I was younger about his time in India during the partition. And he said that his cousin Hafiza's family, her whole family was murdered, but her body was never found. And it later was told to me that young girls at the time were kidnapped and raped or forced into marriage. And that really shook me because it wasn't just something that happened to our family, but it's something that happens to this day. So, what could I do to fight for women's rights internationally, or how could I do that? So, I decided to become a lawyer and do something about that. Now, after I graduated law school, and I wanted to see how I could, go overseas and pursue this ideal in honor of my great aunt. I got the first bill from Sally Mae, and I realized I couldn't do that. There's unfortunately no money per se in it to pay these debts off.
Right.
So I ended up, struggling through poverty while I was living in Queens. And ultimately, I ended up getting a job at Virginia Poverty Law Center. And while working there and doing some amazing things, well, we can talk about that. But
Please, yeah.
I realized that, it's typically single moms who are in poverty or suffering the traumas of poverty. And so this, in a way, was fighting for women's rights. And it really made me feel like I was doing my great aunt an honor and doing this work in honor of her.
That's amazing. Yeah, you have the floor. Tell me some of the awesome things that you worked on, Poverty Law Center.
Yeah. So I came in as the public benefits attorney, not knowing anything about it. And so I guess that was a plus because I got to do things in an innovative way. Like Miss Frizzle says, take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. So one of our big tasks ahead of us was expanding the SNAP program. There's something known as SNAP expansion or broad-based categorical eligibility.
Right.
All the
Right.
states have passed that, and Virginia just couldn't get it over the finish line. So I looked at what my predecessors had tried in getting their coalitions together, and I realized that it was always just the anti-hunger or the anti-poverty folks. It was never actually the corporations or the industry that has the power,
What a coincidence.
right?
Right.
So what I did was I brought in those industries. In fact, I went a little bit more nuanced where I looked at the subcommittee where the bill would originate. I
Right.
looked at who the donors were, who the corporate donors were to those electeds, and I brought them into the coalition.
Hmm.
So now we had the power, right?
Right.
So as the bill went through the General Assembly, we ended up getting a unanimous vote from Democrats and Republicans, and
Wow.
it expanded SNAP for 25,000 families. And then I felt a little bad because I was like, oh my God, like all of a sudden there's going to be a deluge of people of applying for SNAP, and it's going to overwhelm our understaffed social services agency. And I don't want them hating me.
Right.
So what can I do to help them? And so we ended up creating this SNAP screening tool, which is now available at snapscreener.com. And this helps people screen themselves for SNAP in under a minute. And it's mobile friendly, uses very little data because we understand, broadband isn't available everywhere. This is
Right.
mobile friendly. And people can find out within a minute if they are eligible for SNAP and how much benefits they could potentially get. So is it worth their while applying for the program? So thousands and thousands of Virginians have used this. Over 2.5 million families across the nation have used this
That's
to
amazing.
unlock over $100 million in SNAP and WIC benefits. And we birthed it in Virginia.
That's amazing.
The-
Yeah, no doubt your aunt would be proud of that for sure. Let me ask you, this may be a slightly challenging question. I mean, to your credit, the unanimous vote, right? But you have progressive bona fides, right? And a lot of times neoliberals will talk about reaching across the aisle, and they sort of, they sort of forfeit before they actually fight for their principles and policies, right?
Mhm.
That's not what you're saying.
No. So,
Right.
I mean, this was at a time, this was 2020 when the Democrats had the majority in both the House and the Senate. So
Right.
technically we didn't need Republican votes,
Right.
but all of a sudden they all voted for it when in the years prior, they always voted against it.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it was because it wouldn't have mattered, right?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it was good for business. Like one of the data points we shared with them was, here's the amount of people in your district who would benefit, and here's how the businesses would benefit too.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. That's awesome.
We
So
also expanded free school meals for tens of thousands of kids, and we laid out the blueprint of how do we get to universal school meals in Virginia. And it actually happened, again, from a take chances, make mistakes, get messy.
Right.
I was talking with the school nutrition director for the state, and I was very sheepish because it was like one of my first meetings with a bunch of experts. We were talking about school meal debt, and I'm like, wait, I've never heard of this concept. Like, how do we have school meal debt in this country?
Crazy. Right.
So at the end of the meeting, after everybody's gone, I went up to her and I was like, hey, how do you actually get rid of school meal debt? And she kind of just like laughingly said, universal school meals.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
So whereas she may have said it just, cynically, I was like, okay, let's actually do what we can to get towards that. So we created a little work group, and we ended up figuring out a way to subsidize reduced price meals. So those became free in Virginia. And then, working our way, we found a legislative champion, Senator Danica Rome, and then, she would introduce legislation for universal breakfasts, which is cheaper than universal lunches. So, bit by bit, so now universal breakfast is in play, and hopefully that should pass this General Assembly. And then, maybe in a year or two, we'll be able to get to universal school lunches. But I'm hoping to be elected into Congress and supporting the bill and voting for the bill to get universal meals, so we can
Amazing.
continue to the
That's
policy.
great. I hope so too. So let's talk about how terrible. Well, let me frame it this way: like, how has Whitman and how has Trump, ICE, health benefit cuts and so forth, right? SNAP benefits. How has that affected VA-01?
It's been really rough. We've had Whitman supporting the Big Beautiful Bill, and the BBB is something I was fighting against when I was a national advocate over the past nearly 2 years. And we told his office and all Republicans, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And they didn't care. Of course they didn't care, right?
Of course not, right.
So at least he's on notice. What the impact on VA-01 is that there is at least one hospital that is at risk. And this is upsetting because over the past 20 years, this hospital has already had to shut down different divisions. They had to shut down their delivery unit. So for a young family to move into that region and not have a hospital that would help them grow their family, what young family will want to move there, right?
Right.
What business would want to start up a business there if young families are moving there, right?
Yeah, it compounds, absolutely.
Yep. And then should that entire hospital close, well, in a rural area, the hospital is often the largest employer. So all of a sudden, you're gone without the largest employer. Unemployment's going to spike.
Right.
So that's really concerning. We've had 3 medical centers throughout Virginia, not in VA-01, but throughout Virginia already closed because they just were like, hey, if we can't get this funding, we're not going to be able to make our budget. So they just, closed already. Right. We have a number of older adult homes, retirement homes that are get Medicaid funding that are at risk of closing as well. And then, Rob Whitman has been going around touting he supports the $50 billion investment into rural healthcare. But he never talks about how the Big Beautiful Bill cut over $150 billion from rural healthcare. So it's a bait and switch, and it's terrible.
Yeah, it seems like one of those numbers is higher than the other.
Right? Yeah.
Right. So I've heard you in other interviews full-throatedly talk about Medicare for All and sort of an aggressive approach to that. Please share.
What we're going through is akin to what happened to England post-World War II. The Nazis had devastated, destroyed the country. And when the new leadership was elected, they said, we've not been elected to do patchwork legislation. We've been elected to do revolutionary things. And from that, the National Health Service was born. Similarly, in America, Nazis have destroyed our country. And I firmly believe that when people go to vote this year, especially in the primaries, not just the general, but the primary is just as important, if not more. Yeah. We will be voting on revolutionary vision, not patchwork legislation, because it's yesterday's centrism that brought today's fascism. We have to go towards a better way. We have to go towards a revolutionary vision. And affordability of healthcare is the crisis of our time. Medicare for All is the solution.
Beautiful. And you're not going to be a Fetterman, right?
God, no. Well, I'll say this as well. I'm currently, my children are on Medicaid, and my wife and I are ineligible for it because we make too much.
Right. Yeah, there's no sweet spot, unfortunately. Let's talk just slightly about the district, right? So I'm going to pull up just a visual, right? So VA-01 is sort of greater northern Richmond, right? Yep. Just give me a quick little profile of your district, if you would.
Yeah, it's a wonderful district, and I'm really, I'm going to be upset losing it in the redistricting because it's got the suburbs of Richmond and like lots of schools, lots of great areas, lots of parks, and then it goes into New Kent County, the historic triangle of Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown, into the rural lands of the Northern Neck, and lots of history here. Lots of people who are proud of the homes that generations of their families have lived in. And I've had the opportunity to visit nearly all of it. And it's been a really great time just meeting people and learning about them and getting to enjoy the food. Took my family to West Point Crab Cake Festival, and my son ate my whole sandwich.
There you go.
It's a beautiful area. So Chesapeake Bay is here too.
Right. Yeah. Obviously. What's the reception on the policies? These are people-centered policies. I can't imagine you're getting any resistance, pushback. The typical how you're going to pay for it stuff, right? Mm-hmm. What's the reception been on your platform locally?
Yeah, so I was at a Rotary Club a few weeks ago, and I mentioned Medicare for All, and I got some ire from the audience, and I anticipated it based on the audience, which led me to write an op-ed that was published in the Richmond Times-Dispatch about how we would pay for Medicare for All. And what I explained in there is that, as of last year, we would have to pay 9% of our income before the subsidies kicked in. With Medicare for All, we would only pay 4% of our income. Right. So one of those numbers is bigger. Which one do you want, right? It's
right.
All of that simple. And this is something that is getting a lot of positive reception. During call time, I've spoken with people who actually work in the health insurance space, obviously not the executives, but people who are, just lower level staff who are in favor of Medicare for all. Pretty much every single doctor. I don't think I've met a single doctor yet who is against Medicare for all.
Wow, that's great.
And when I was in a very rural part of Virginia, a crowd of about 200 folks, older white audience, maybe average age was 60, 65. And I'm going through my platform and I'm a little nervous before I say my final point because I don't know how this older white audience in rural Virginia is going to respond. But when I said, for God's sake, we need to end the genocide in Gaza, that got the loudest applause compared to all the other policies in my position statement. So that was really surprising. So there's definitely a change coming, and we're really excited to be at the helm of that.
Excellent. Yeah, I should take this opportunity to point out endorsed on the AIPAC tracker, right?
Yeah.
Yep. That's a litmus test nowadays, right?
Yeah, and that means two things. One, obviously, we're not taking AIPAC funding, and we are calling for the end of the genocide. But also, there's an element of Track AIPAC to call for campaign finance reform. So, we are, that's one of our 3 priorities: campaign finance reform. We're not taking any corporate PAC money. We're not taking AIPAC money because these are interests that are not in line with the people. And the preamble of the Constitution is "we the people," not we the 3 corporations in a trench coat. That's America right now, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, truth be told, I wouldn't be talking to you if you did take corporate PAC money, right? So, but yeah, thanks for stating that. Of course, I want to ask about, on your on the issues page on your website, right? And by the way, if you go to a candidate's website and they don't have issues, you should be sus right out of the gate, right? So thanks for putting them on there, and you filled out the Ballotpedia questionnaire and full throated Medicare for all, universal human rights, et cetera, right? So fantastic, right? But you have the phrase "unrig the system." I just want to give you an opportunity about, what does that mean to you? You get to Congress, how do you start to unrig the system?
Yeah. So one of the big issues that we have right now is we can't trust our elected officials. Not that we should blindly trust our government ever, but just based on the finances, whether it's campaign finance or personal, we just can't trust them. One, we have Congress members who are trading stocks based on the information they have before the public has it. And congressmen like my representative have benefited in the millions from this type of information. And so I'm in favor of banning stock trades for Congress members and their families. If you're a public servant, you're serving the public. You shouldn't become a millionaire while being a servant. So that's why I'm like, you go in there, you do the job, and you get out. That's why I'm in favor of term limits as well. My ideal is we go in there, we get Medicare for all, and then I can get out and run a food truck. That's all I want to do. I don't want to be a career politician. And that's why I'm kind of excited about the new generations coming into Congress. Millennials, Gen Z, we stay in jobs 5, 6 years, maybe tops. So I think term limits might just become organic by the nature of our generations.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. Yeah.
And then also, campaign finance reform again. Like, we can't trust my representative to be voting in our interest because we know he's getting checks from the military-industrial complex. Right. Meanwhile, he's the next in line to be the chair of the House Armed Services Committee. And when Trump invaded Venezuela, he didn't condemn that. He commended it because, again, that's going to help keep that military-industrial complex going, keep those checks coming in and helping him get reelected. So that's why we need people who are running for office, who are not getting these checks, because we really need people who are voting in our best interests, not corporations or other countries.
Right. Wow. So the platform is, like I said, sort of progressive bona fides, right? Is there anything specific and universal? I feel like as I'm talking to 2026 candidates, I'm going to be hitting a lot of these same topics because they're happening everywhere. Is there anything specifically in your district that you're hearing from that's not, sort of, wages, healthcare, like anything real specific?
Yeah, I want to talk about 2. Virginia is the data center capital of the world. And we don't say that as a positive. It's really bad because it's not only taking up land, but it's not creating jobs. They have diesel generators that are running 24/7 just so there's no latency between, power outages. So that's polluting our air. It's sucking up all the water. There is this data center that wants to be built on the Rappahannock in our district, and the Rappahannock River is an endangered river. So to take water from that we're already at a bad point. And yet counties and localities are voting for these data centers because it's a revenue generator somehow. But then the agreement that has been made is making the people have to pay for the energy costs used by the data center. And the data center is using energy based on people from all around the world using these data centers. So Virginians and our neighbors across the district are paying for the internet usage of people from all around the world.
Right.
And there's just no end in sight for that. So when Senator Sanders says we need a moratorium on data centers, absolutely. We got to figure this out. Do we need them? Probably in some way, shape, or form. Do they have to be in Virginia? Not necessarily. Can they figure out a way to be more environmentally friendly? They should.
Right.
Figure out some sort of internal cooling model, figure out some sort of solar panel, renewable energy model. But then again, representatives like Rob Whitman voted for the big, beautiful bill, which eliminated investment from renewable energy projects. So, Republicans are shooting themselves in the foot and wondering what is going on. And we just have to have competent leadership who are able to assess the whole situation instead of looking piecemeal. And then the second thing our district faces is our farmers are impacted, of course, by the tariff wars that are going on, but they're also impacted by something that people are not familiar with, and maybe because the FTC has been being gutted, but there's a monopoly being in formation in the farm world where now farmers are kind of in a bind. There's essentially like one corporation that is super farming that knows how much seeds the farmer has, knows how much potash they have, knows how the crops are doing, knows how much gas is left in their combines, X, Y, Z, so many more things. And so they're able to price one farmer for things differently from another one. Dynamic pricing, like we saw with Instacart, right? They're doing that to farmers right now, and farmers don't have a champion to speak out for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a massive issue, the seed monopoly. I don't know if is it Monsanto? That's who it was previously, right?
Yeah, Monsanto has that monopoly on the GMO seed.
Right.
There's a different monopoly with the other things that farmers need to help be really successful too.
Yeah, you don't hear. I'm glad you raised that. You don't hear that talked about nearly enough. And it's the times we live in of the, 100 fires that we're dealing with. That's 101, which is that any one of those could rise to the first position, right? It's just the times we're in. Speaking of that, so you mentioned about the redistricting and so forth, right?
Yep.
Obviously, we have wannabe dictator, and we have concerns about election fairness. Like, what are your thoughts on that? How do we wrestle with that? What's your outlook on that?
A lot of people are uncertain whether or not we're going to have midterms, but Trump wouldn't have started the gerrymandering wars if there weren't going to be midterms. So I'm certain that there's going to be midterms because he's trying to usurp the whole process. So I'm glad that Virginia is fighting fire with fire, and other Democratic states are doing the same as well. So yeah, we should be seeing midterms. We're going to be seeing an influx of ICE in Virginia now that we have the governor transition happening this week. And I'm hopeful that our new administration is able to protect our citizens against ICE, unlike what we're seeing in other states. So hopefully Virginia can be a model for the rest of the country, especially the red states that are just not shaping up the way they should for their citizens.
Right. Any endorsements that you want to highlight, or?
Yeah. So we've been endorsed, of course, by Track AIPAC. We've been endorsed by Qasim Rashid, who is a noted activist and former 2020 congressional candidate against Rob Whitman. We've been endorsed by local businesses, small businesses, a very popular coffee shop, and local music artist. And there's also a local artist, rather. And a former candidate for House of Delegates. He almost flipped a very red seat, so we're really looking forward to him winning next year.
Right on.
And working on some other endorsements, but
no
of course,
doubt.
We're not really concerned about endorsements. Endorsements don't win votes.
Yeah.
We just want to get to the people instead.
And your primary is crowded. There's about 10 or so other folks, right?
8. A few have dropped out, so it's 8 now. Yeah.
Okay. But obviously your website, salamforva.com, right?
Yep.
How can people help from wherever?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people get very excited when there's a candidate who's running without taking corporate PAC money or AIPAC money. However, I'd like to invite people to take that next step of filling that hole that we leave behind when we don't take that corporate or AIPAC funding. And because, yes, we may be saying no to tens of thousands of dollars, but we still need to hire staff, and we still need to print literature and still canvas the right doors and buy all that data. It costs a lot of money. So we don't have that capacity from our integrity, but we would love you to, chip in $5, $10. It doesn't have to be $250 or the $3,500 max. If you can do like $20 a month for the duration of the campaign, that would be so helpful, especially if we can get 100, 200, 1,000 people doing that.
Yeah, here. Are you set up for phone banking yet?
Yeah, we do have. We've been endorsed by Progressive Victory, and they're going to be helping us with phone banking. So yeah, and we've got a bunch of volunteers. And people can also go to salamforva.com/act and sign up to volunteer, even if you're outside of the district.
Excellent. Anything else that you want to hit on that's a priority for you that we didn't touch on?
As an expert within the public benefits space, I have ideas on how we can really make the programs more efficient without actually kicking people off. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape, and a lot of conversations that need to happen between the state employees and the federal government, because unfortunately people in Congress right now are unfamiliar with the nuances of it all, and they're voting in ways that are very detrimental to the programs and to the people who rely on these programs. For example, during the Big Beautiful Bill, there was a massive change that happened to the SNAP program, which involved payment error rates. And Congress members didn't even know that payment error rates came out at a very certain point in the year. They were just ignorant to it. And as a result, they've really, really uphoven the whole system. And a lot of people are going to be impacted by this in a negative way. So we really need to go in there and really just cut the red tape. It is the Gordian knot of our time. We don't necessarily need to solve the symptoms of poverty when we can actually solve for poverty itself.
Right. Amazing. Yeah. Let me once again, I watched the previous interview where you, if I may be so direct, you sort of geeked out about being a Lord of the Rings fan, right?
Oh, with Kate for the people.
So, on behalf of, VA-01 and progressives everywhere, I thank you for being the Frodo who steps up and says, I'll take the ring to Mordor, whatever, for running. So,
I was just talking with my wife last night. I was like, we're running into the fire.
Yeah.
And you're right. We're running into the fire of Mount Doom.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate, again, not to overstate it, but your initial calling for the public service. I'm sure those folks that you were advocating on behalf of your family would be proud, right? So, I appreciate you running. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It's salamforva.com, right?
That's it. Yep.
The primary date is to be determined, but as of the moment, it's June 26th, June 16th.
June 16th. Yep.
Okay.
And then my social media handle is the same across all networks. So come join. This is a campaign of joy. These are very dark times. We really want to be able to highlight the positivity of the people in our district. So come join us, and let's just remember the good in people so that we can really repel the evil of our times.
I love that so much. Thank you for that. And when you get through the primary, when you're in the general, come back on. We'll have another round.
As Joe Biden would say, inshallah.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks for the time.